All right, Miles.
Yep, let's do
I
it.
think we're ready. Well, welcome everyone. This is our first AmShot webinar. We are going to start a series of webinars, so I'm very excited. Um, this topic today is cyber resilience. Cyber resilience is the concept that you can't be 100% um, perfect. You can't get it right all the time, and you have to be prepared for something to go wrong in your organization. And the more you're prepared for that, the less impact it will have on the event. We are going to be giving away some gift cards. So stay tuned to the end of the webinar. We do want the most um, amount of feedback. So feedback participation gets you more points, and the top three chatter boxes will be getting a gift card. So very excited about that. We're gonna have a few polls as well, so look for those. A little bit about myself. So my name is Michael Thomas. I'm the CEO of AmShot, and I founded AmShot 13 years ago. We're a managed service provider, so we do IT for small, medium businesses in the Oklahoma City market. We love doing what we do. We are dedicated to being a world-class outfit, and we are enjoying the journey along the way. There's QR code. Snap that. You can go to my profile page on the website and uh, link up with me on LinkedIn. And then, of course, joining me is the incomparable Miles Walker. I'll turn it over to him to introduce himself.
Incomparable. Well, there we go. I like
Yeah.
that introduction. Michael, thanks so much to you and your team for letting me join. Obviously, I always love to get down and see you guys in person in Oklahoma City, which is, and I'm not just saying this to win some praise, one of my favorite cities in America. You guys know how to be hospitable. I cannot wait to get down there for an in-person event at your office with, Drew and Caroline hopefully will join and the rest of the team. And once again, scan that QR code. That'll connect me up on LinkedIn. I posted a lot of content that you can repurpose and learn a little bit about the world of cybersecurity.
Yeah. And Miles is up in Canada. We don't hold it up against him because he's a cool Canadian.
Thank you. Thank you.
When he does come down south, he does like to bring snacks. So last time he was here, he brought some ketchup flavored potato chips, which
They're
was
they're much better than they sound. I promise. I promise.
they're good. It's
Yeah.
just a little weird. He brought some maple cookies.
Yes, I did. And I will bring more next
Good.
time. Maybe some all dressed chips. I won't bring any poutine because that doesn't travel very well if you guys know what poutine is. I'm assuming someone on the call has had poutine at some stage.
So we actually have a great restaurant in Oklahoma City that does a great poutine. So I'll have to take you there.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
Um,
Nice.
all right. So a little bit about Amshot. This is our mission. So the mission of AmShot is to empower businesses and decision makers with valuable technologies that further their mission and goals. We do that by creating an engaging environment that allows our team, AmShot, to thrive. We are an employee-centric organization, and it is how we succeed and provide the absolute best service to our clients. 13 years ago, when I got into and decided that I was going to go on this journey of creating a business, this was one of my core pieces is I knew I could create a fun, engaging environment where people could grow and thrive. And by doing that, our clients would be extremely satisfied. All right, so our agenda, um, it's an intense webinar. There's a lot to this, and we're going to go through each of these bullets, but we do want to keep it fun. We do want to keep it light, so we are going to um, do our best to keep you engaged. So be ready for some polls throughout the presentation, and um, some other opportunities for feedback. So, with that being said, we'll go to our first slide. And in Oklahoma, we have had some pretty notable recent cyber events. The biggest one was the Integris Health hack, where everybody who's an Integris customer got an email from the actual threat actors. So they emailed every one of the customers and asked for a tiny bit of ransom. That was all in the news, and a testament to how this is a problem that is everywhere, and that everyone has to deal with. Another one was power schools. So recently, some local schools, some of their data was breached. So some of the parents on the call, you may have seen that an email from your school saying this data was lost. This is what happened. So I just wanted to get into that and have you guys know that this is something that we're all doing. And the first quiz is, have you in your organization, have you been hacked lately? So as Miles and I kind of talk about other events, go ahead and vote on this and let us know if your organization has been involved in an incident in the last year.
And this is pretty scary, I think, because I think we're seeing numbers right now. Most businesses are seeing obviously phishing emails. I would say 90% or 100% even of businesses are seeing phishing emails, but 30 to 50% are actually having attacks, which is really scary because if you haven't had attacks, you know what? Fingers crossed, you've been lucky. But you know what? In all likelihood, there will be an attack coming soon.
Yeah. And so it does look like we've had someone experience a cyber incident in the past year, and that's not surprising. Definitely what I would expect to see, that there's been an incident in our group here in the webinar. The um, the urgency and the importance of being prepared is that since we can't keep everything perfect, we can't have 100% protection. We have to be ready when those incidents occur. So I'm going to let everybody finish up on this poll. Looks like we got another yes on the poll. So that being said, how ready do you feel like you are as a company? How ready is your um, business? That was the next one I wanted to share. I'm having trouble sharing it. There we go. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how ready do you feel like your business is for us to respond to a cyber incident? 1 being rest in peace, company, we won't bounce back, and 10, we wouldn't skip a beat.
I think if they say 10, I am very impressed, Michael. I'm not gonna lie. Or maybe just an overconfidence. That could be it too.
Well, hint, we will be asking this poll at the end again. So I do want to see how this kind of changes throughout um, throughout our talk, because this isn't how safe do you feel from being attacked. It's how ready are you once an attack happens. So post attack, how confident are you in your organization's ability to recover? And so it's not an if, but a when. When your company gets attacked, how quickly or how ready would you be to respond?
And just to give some figures out there, this was from 2023, I believe. The figures we got back was 60% of small businesses that get attacked and end up paying the full ransom go out of business within a year. So 60% of those businesses, which is pretty scary to think that, yeah, if a business is listening, one out of every two businesses that gets attacked, if they actually pay that ransom, the chance of them actually staying in business is pretty slim, which is pretty scary.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and end that poll and not share the results of it until later. So, on to the next slide. I'm going to turn it over to Miles, and we can talk a little bit about um, how no one's immune.
It sounds good. So there's so many terms, and I know probably a couple people. Actually, it'd be great if you can let me know in the chat if this is the first time you've actually been on a cybersecurity webinar. Just throw a one in the chat if you've never been on a cybersecurity webinar. I know often when I talk to end users or our partners. Like Michael and his clients, or their clients, or her clients, depending on who we're talking to. Often, a lot of people say, Miles, this is the first time I've actually ever heard a cyber attack webinar or a cybersecurity webinar. So, be interesting to hear in the chat if any of you have actually been on one of these before. But we've got a lot of key words we need to go over. I mean, obviously, ransomware is the thing that all businesses do not want to get. And how do they get ransomware? It's typically through some type of phishing email. Whether that's an email that comes through from someone that looks like a legitimate business client or friend, but often it can be spoofed, which is the term social engineering, which is basically making up a fake account. We see that becoming more and more commonplace. And now with tools like Chat GPT, this allows these cyber criminals to do more sophisticated attacks. Long gone are those days of getting an email from a, Nigerian prince with spelling errors you can tell is clearly fake. Now these emails are becoming more and more believable, and this is something that we all have to deal with going forward. I know you mentioned Integris Health got attacked, and that is something we saw um, a lot over the past couple years. So cyber criminals are now targeting schools, and they're now targeting healthcare facilities. I think I told you earlier, Michael, that I was in Vegas this week, and I actually did a cybersecurity talk to about 1,000 people. And I used the example. There was a Vegas plastic surgery clinic that got hit by a cyber attack, and the threat actors or cyber criminals, whatever you want to call them, said, "We want $100,000, or we're going to leak all your clients' information." The the clinic did not pay the money. And Michael, I don't know if I've told you this story before. Guess what they leaked?
I think you did tell me, was it photographs or something? Like,
Before and after photographs of women
yeah.
who were going through the process of getting plastic surgery. And I did this talk, like I said, about 1,000 people were there. And I actually had two women come up to me after whose friend was one of the people that had her photos leaked. And it was so interesting because I do a lot of these talks and I get a lot of feedback, but never have I told a story and someone came up to me right after and told me their version of what happened, and they're still going through the legal process. It is, I won't say ruined this woman's life, but it has definitely hurt her really, really badly, which is really sad to hear. Great to see that some people in the chat have never actually done a talk on cybersecurity. So that's great. I love that you guys are here because that means you're willing to learn. Michael, I'll pass it back over to you.
Yeah, one thing I like to think about when I think about no system is immune is, you've got your house and you've got locks on the doors. Then you might have an alarm system. You might have cameras. it's these layers, it's these systems that can respond if one thing fails, because you know phishing or social engineering, those things are going to potentially lead to ransomware. So if you get phished, the quicker you can respond and kick someone out of your system, the less likely you are to get ransomware. So there's not a group out there, there's not an organization out there that is 100% immune to cyber threats. So you've got to be ready to respond.
I love that. And also the days of hoping and praying that your IT team or that could be Michael who's looking after your business. But if you do have an IT person, your point of call, they cannot protect you. And that's something that's so important. Everyone has to be involved with the process. And that's like office manager, HR, finance, all those people are targets for cyber criminals. And that's why I always say security awareness training is key. But what also has to be done, everybody who's listening on this call has to be doing phishing simulation. And what's phishing simulation? That's actually seeing what these phishing emails look like. So actually being tested, because I always say it's so much better to fail with a test or with our company doing it than to actually have a failure with a cyber criminal trying to fish you. So just good points to think about.
All right, skip slide. So cybersecurity versus cyber resilience. The locked door is your cybersecurity. Your escape plan, or what you teach your kids to do if something bad happens, like a fire escape plan or a dial 911, that is your response plan. And so a bad guy who wants to get into your house, your cybersecurity in your house, that's the lock, that's the alarm. But what happens when people get past it? This is your cyber resilience. This is your plan for after the fact. So, it may sound crazy, but Maersk, the international shipping organization, multi-billion dollar company, they have extremely strong cybersecurity. They still got breached, and they are extremely proud that they were up and running again in 10 days. And so that's the level of planning. It could have been months, it could have been weeks. They had a plan that they knew it would take them 10 days to recover these systems, and they hit their objective. And so they knew it would take them 10 days to recover all their systems. They did get breached and they recovered all their systems. So a great story there.
And if I could jump in, Michael,
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
what time do cyber criminals, what day and what time do cyber criminals typically attack businesses? Can you take a guess there?
Oh, I know for sure. It's when we're asleep, or when we're having a good time. It's Christmas Eve. It's New Year's Eve. It's 2 in the morning. It's not when we're ready, ever.
Yeah, they never attack on a Thursday at 12:30. That is not when they attack. They attack when Michael, you still not invited me down for this, but when you are hanging out with your family on July the 4th, having some hot dogs and a beer or two, that's the time they attack. I still have not got that Christmas Eve invite yet, but
Oh,
Christmas
man.
Eve. I'm still waiting.
I'm
I'm
always
still
in
waiting.
Canada for some reason. I don't know.
I'm checking my mailbox at my igloo every day here, but come on. So cyber criminals are attacking when you least expect it. Late at night, when you're sleeping, when you're not prepared on holidays. And that's why having that cyber resilience plan, it's almost like if we can use the analogy, like having that playbook for your football team. You need to know who's going to call, what time you're going to call, what you're going to do next. Are you going to shut down the systems? Everything you need so that the attack doesn't turn into worse than it could. All right, let's keep going.
Yeah, for sure. Um, let's look at some of the key pillars of a strong resistance, or a strong resilience plan. So you want, so like right now, there's the uh, Oklahoma's owns the IT department for the state of Oklahoma. They're blocking their number that they put in the paper was 17 million attacks a day on all of their systems, and they stop 99% of them, and they're proud of that. And so you can do the math, and that's a lot of attacks aren't getting stopped. And so they have to have responses on those attacks. So they may be an AI that's protecting after something gets through, but OU State IT stops 99% of their attacks, and they're proud of that because they know that they can't do 100%. So the um, they have to have these six pillars in place. The first one, the simple one, is cybersecurity. And that's when people think of cyber and they think of cybersecurity, you're thinking of this one bubble. And what we want to talk about in this webinar is the other five are the most important ones. So I've got a poll, but I'm gonna tee that up, but I'll let Miles talk a little bit about what some of those mean and um,
Yeah. And Michael, I might burn some bridges with people listening now, but I'm going to go ahead and do it. I'm giving everybody listening a little bit of fun homework. I put two links in the chat as well, to two movies that are super relevant to what Michael was saying about cybersecurity, what I'm talking about. Michael, have you watched Zero Day yet
oh yeah, yeah.
on Netflix?
You told me to, and I did. I do my
Well
homework.
done. Well done. Number one movie. I think it was in 9 different countries this past month. My good friend and Michael's, what's it, uncle, Robert De Niro. Is that right?
Yeah, Uncle Bobby, Bobby De
So,
Niro.
so Robert De Niro, this is all about where we're going in our world when it comes to cyber attacks. I also put in one of my favorite movies that I love to share with people that's just recently came out last year with Jason Statham called The Beekeeper. These should be required watching for everybody listening, for your friends, for your family, especially if you have parents who are in their 70s or 80s, like my parents. They need to be watching a movie like The Beekeeper. I just see the poll came up there. Which pillar does your organization need help with the most? Cybersecurity, incident response, business continuity, adaptability, employee awareness, or regulatory compliance. So when we're talking about these six things, is it? Yeah, six things. Um, Michael dove into the world of cybersecurity. It's got to be a layered approach, kind of like an onion. So you might think your company is doing everything they can, but you are a big cog in that wheel. You need to be doing cybersecurity awareness training. You need to be doing phishing simulation, and I recommend once a month. So you have to be testing your employees, your team, because cyber criminals are going after the weakest link. So you might think you're doing the right thing, but maybe your office manager who works part time, they're not actually doing cybersecurity awareness training. They have to do that. When we're talking about incident response, having that resilience plan ready, and everybody needs to know in the company, how to act, how to react to an attack when it happens. When we're talking about adaptability, these cyber threats are constantly evolving, so your defenses must be constantly evolving too. Maybe you've been doing security awareness training a couple years ago, but you stopped. Maybe you're doing it once a year or twice a year. This has to be something that you're constantly working on because these cyber criminals are constantly evolving in their attack process. When we're talking about employee awareness training, I will talk, over and over about how important this is. You need to see what these fake emails look like, whether it's from FedEx, whether it's from Bank of America, whether it's from, a local restaurant, whether it's from Grubhub. You need to see what they look like so that you're not the one who's going to be the weakest link who clicks on that. And then, of course, this is something that Michael's probably going to talk about a little bit, but regulatory compliance. In 2025, so many industries now have to be compliant just to get cyber liability insurance. So you can listen to us or not, but this is something that you're going to probably need just to operate as a business, depending on what area you're in. Michael, back over to you.
Yeah. The fun thing is when we get to work with our clients on their resilience, we don't have to just focus on our tool stack. Like the tools are important, and it's, we've got to be layering more technology on top of more technology and AI and SOC and all these acronyms. But we get to learn about people's businesses, and we get to have the conversation about who is going to be in charge of writing the press release if something bad happens. Because if you don't have that playbook, you're not ready to respond. So the IT department, we have a plan. We have our plan of attack. We're going to document things. We're going to submit the paperwork right. But that's just on the IT side. We get to have these conversations with the companies about what's going on in your industry, what is happening, how do you want the business to look 2 days, 2 weeks after a breach, what do you want it to be like, so that you can make business decisions, not just count on technology. The technology, your technology partner, whether it's an MSP or an internal IT department, they're not just IT. They're a business unit in a large organization that needs to understand business objectives, goals, what is expected, what the pain tolerance is. And so as the businesses shift their focus from just assuming that cybersecurity is the only thing that IT can provide, and they bring IT into these other spaces, the more robust and the more efficient that IT department becomes. All these things are great for cyber resilience, but they're also great for helping your business grow and thrive. So if you go through the process of having incident response and regulatory compliance and employee awareness, your company is going to be more healthy. It is going to be able to respond and adapt in a better manner, to any of these, not only adverse situations, but just as the market changes and business goals change.
And if I can jump in there, I got a great
Yeah.
question that came through in the chat, which said many breaches still stem from human error. How can organizations build a true culture of cyber resilience without overwhelming employees? Okay, I've got a great story. This hits home really well. So, I don't know if anyone knows on this call what a CISO is, a Chief Information Security Officer. So companies like ours, like Microsoft, like Dell, like Coca-Cola, large companies now have in the last 5 to 7 years put in CISOs. So they're the person that's in charge of, improving the cybersecurity landscape for a company and improving cyber hygiene. So making sure that we're aware. And I went out for dinner with him in Orlando when he first started. And we were talking about security awareness training. And I said, but how do we get everybody to jump on board? And he said, okay, I'll give you a story. And I said, okay. So he said, Miles, if you worked at a company like Michael's company, like Amshot, and you left one day and you left the door open, and someone came into Amshot and stole all of the computers, what would happen to you? And I'm like, I would get in a lot of trouble. And would I get fired? I don't know. I mean, Michael's such a great guy, so he maybe wouldn't fire me, but he would be upset. Um, and then he said, okay, well, what happens if you did it a second time? And I said, ah, you know what? Michael and I have known each other for a couple of years. He would probably give me another stern warning and say, this is the last time. If you do it again, you're fired. And he said, okay, what if you third time you left the door open and they came in and stole the computers again? I'm like, I would 100% get fired. And he's like, that's how we have to actually look at cybersecurity these days. And I said, well, what do you mean? He's like, we need to take cybersecurity as seriously as, actual security. So if you have an employee that is constantly doing stuff that could jeopardize your business and make you go out of business, you're obviously going to let them go. And the question is, building a true cyber culture of cyber resilience without overwhelming employees, this has to be something that is done from day one, from the time you onboard somebody. And it has to come from the top down. It has to come from the CEO or the president, like Michael, because if they don't take it seriously, the rest of the company won't. So when you onboard someone, you know, cybersecurity has to be front of mind. And you have to have a 2 or 3 strike policy. If they fail constantly to do these security awareness training programs, they shouldn't be at your company. Um, I know when our CISO was talking about this, I said, well, how do we actually guarantee that they do the testing? And he said, take away their salary. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? He's like, I guarantee if you say everyone has to do this by Friday, not everyone will do it. But come Monday, you give them an extra day or two. And if you say, hey, do you want to get paid this month? Well, you have to do this. They're going to fill out that cyber resilience test. And I know that might seem harsh, but this is where we're at today. And Michael, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And the tools that we use, and yes, we do have cybersecurity training tools, passive and active. So we have the ability to, and make people watch videos on cyber, but then also do the campaigns where we're trying to fish them and get reports. And that's just one of the key parts is employee awareness. So this webinar that we're doing right now is something that we are doing to help generate awareness for cybersecurity, for cyber resilience, for the importance of these things. So we want to share it into the community as well. The next is that cyber resilience and overwhelming your employees. You have to be ready for if they do get fished. So you have to train them. You don't want them to get fished, but then your systems need to be ready. You need to have security operations. You need to have SaaS watching software that's looking at your SaaS for patterns. You need to have conditional access rules. You need to have multi-factor authentication. You need to have a whole suite of cybersecurity things that are, if they do fail, you have lots of other things that are going to come into place as well. So it is layered, it is the onion, it's all of these things because no matter what we do for cybersecurity, no matter how well we train everyone, something is gonna happen.
Yeah.
They're going to come up with a new way to, pull your cookies out of your browser and get into your thing because of a 0 day something. And there's always something. And so it's so important that we really don't let up pressure on any of these areas. I'd say in my career, I've been doing IT for 20 years. The business continuity piece and the cybersecurity piece were really kind of all that there was for the longest period of time. Definitely in kind of older or set it and forget it IT departments or IT leads, they counted on having a backup. So you had a backup. That was your plan. You wouldn't worry about it. You had some kind of cybersecurity and some kind of backup, and as long as you got the company back up and running, they were okay. Well, you can't do that anymore because you can't let your data out into the world. You have to be responding, you have to be training, you have to understand what the regulations are coming. And I like to take regulatory compliance and I like to just overlay cybersecurity. Insurance compliance, because if you don't have a regulatory body that's governing you and pushing down things for you, you probably will in the near future, but you do have and you should have some sort of cyber insurance policy. And that is a compliance in and of itself. Because if you pay for cyber insurance, you want them to pay out on a claim. And if you're not checking off, if you're not compliant with that policy that you've got, you won't get paid. And so there's a big back and forth with all of these, and they all have to be really strongly put together.
Yeah. And I mean, like, I will throw it in the chat. Throw a one in the chat if you dislike or hate MFA like I do. Okay. And Michael's probably like, why are you saying this? But throw a one in the chat if you don't like having to do MFA, because I spoke to a leading cybersecurity expert and he said, Miles, if you don't like MFA, that's fine, but you have to change the way you think about what MFA is. I said, well, what do you mean? He's like, you have to realize that by doing MFA, you're helping your business stay around. And that is the reason why you have a job. Because I was complaining to him that I have to do this with my phone 10 times a day because our security is so tight at our company. And it gets so annoying. But I had to, train my brain into thinking about it differently, that This is the reason when I do this every time, that is the reason why I have a job. And we have heard stories, just like what Michael said about insurance. If you don't turn on MFA for everybody in your company, that insurance company, when you get breached, will go through all of your internal logs and figure out, oh, wow, Steven or Michael or whoever's in this chat, you know what? 70% of the people in their company were using MFA, but the other 30% weren't. And you checked that you use MFA. That insurance company is not going to pay out. And I've seen it happen
Yeah,
time after time after time. So you might not like MFA, like me, I had to get around how I thought about MFA and realize that's the difference between me having a job and not.
yeah. It's so it's there's so many horror stories. I was involved in um, I met with this client and they had been breached a couple of years ago. They're not a client of mine, this firm. And I met with them then, and I was like, you really need to do these things. You need to make these changes. They did not want to make the changes. And about a year and a half later, it happened again. And I was talking to them, and I was like, what changes did you make? What did you do? They didn't make any IT changes. The only change they had made was they lowered the amount of coverage that they had in cybersecurity. That was it. And I was just, I'm just horrified because, this one of the guys that works there, one of the partners, is a friend of mine. And I'm like, he's like, I don't know how I can go on. It's so traumatic. So, some of the benefits of being cyber resilient are when something happens, it's not very bad. So the easiest thing to do if you get ransomware, you assume is pay the ransom. Well, that's what Colonial Pipeline, if you guys remember Colonial Pipeline, that was kind of during kind of part of the lockdown of the pandemic, I believe, and
Yep.
they got shut down and they paid $4.4 million to the bad guys. And they were hoping that they would be back up and running, and they weren't. They still had massive downtime and they had to rebuild so many systems. So you can't count on even paying the bad guys to get you back up and running quickly. You would think if you paid $4.4 million, they'd flip a switch and you'd be back up and running. Well, they paid them $4.4 million and they just didn't have $4.4 million anymore, and the bad guys did. And
Yep.
so, you have to um, you have to do that. Some of the other um, ways to look at cyber resilience is is maybe like a backup generator. Think of you have your your house, and you don't want to be out of electricity during a ice storm. Uh, so you have a backup generator. That way, you know what to expect. It's limited functionality, but you know that you'll have this limited functionality until the big system gets back online. All right, we've got a few questions, lots of them. Um, we're pretty traditional, but we're really diligent. So I would say we're not we're not any different, and we're going to get into some NIST framework opportunities later. Um, tip, yeah, we'll get into most of these questions a little bit later on some of the slides about NIST and cybersecurity framework. So um, we'll go on to
And,
the
and
next
I
slide.
think a lot of these questions as well would be great one-on-one talks as well, because a lot of them we don't want to rush the process with an answer there. But Michael, that would be definitely worth reaching out, having a full scope of the business. Because if we're talking about evolving threats, that's what we're going to jump into next, I think. Um, the threat landscape. So cyber criminals, like you mentioned earlier, Michael, they're finding new ways to attack businesses. individuals, whether that's through things like vishing, voice phishing, smishing. I'm guessing everybody on this call has had some type of text message come through in the last couple weeks, which looked legit. I mean, just to give you an example, with the hurricanes in Florida, with the wildfires in California, or with Doge taking away jobs from certain government agencies, cyber criminals have been exploiting those type of incidents or geopolitical I guess it would be geopolitical stories that have come into our frame, and they're attacking. So I remember the second those hurricanes hit in Florida, I had friends down there who sent me emails. They were getting reached out to by supposed insurance companies saying, "We're here to help you. Let's get you a new house. Let's get you some new construction." And these cyber criminals exploit everyday events to try and attack us. So the threats landscape's constantly evolving. And nowadays, I think someone mentioned in the chat about, resources. Cybersecurity now, it's not like it was 5 or even 10 years ago. You have to have a budget set aside every year for cybersecurity. This is just something that every company has to do because small companies are getting attacked. My uncle's carpet company, a small little company here in Canada, got attacked. They had no cyber resilience plan. They had no cybersecurity tools. The property management company that I work with, they have one of my apartments that they list. They got attacked. So companies that were previously probably not on a cyber criminal's radar are getting attacked. If you have any type of web presence, you have a chance to get attacked, especially if you have some type of POS system as well.
Yeah. We do like to talk a lot about reputation because that is, it's a huge piece of this. And how Amshot treats our clients cyber, I like to sum it up this way. Cyber is so important to our client's reputation and to our reputation. Because if one of our clients has an incident, it reflects badly on us. And so we're pretty intense in that we don't let our clients make bad decisions. We expect them to trust us and to implement the protection that they're going to need, have the continuity plans in place that they need, be compliant in whatever way, shape, or form that they're supposed to be. And compliance is difficult to pin down. It's a lifestyle. It's not a on-off switch. You can't just spend a couple $100,000 one day and just become compliant. You have to work on it every single day. It does need to be in your budget. It needs to be in the way that you talk to your team, in the way your business talks about how it works. So these things that we're looking at here, these words are very important. And reputation is in red because that's the core of what can be harmed the most. It is hard to earn that reputation back. You can recover your data, if you have a good backup. You can get your systems up and running, but the reputation of your business in the public and internally in your own company, it's so valuable. It's such a key piece of your culture that you need to make sure that this is part of your structure.
I know people
Right.
are jumping in on the chat here, and we wanted to dive a little bit into NIST. I know that. So, what is NIST? The National Institute of Standards and Technology. I like to say this is what is the basis of your playbook for cyber resilience. So, if everyone knows what NIST is or nobody knows what NIST is, NIST, please Google it. This is the way you want to evolve your business and make sure you're ready when an attack happens. And when I say NIST is definitely the most popular framework used in the USA, in North America, and that's to identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover from an attack. So basically, it's giving you those tools, and you want to coordinate with, someone like Michael and Amshot so they can walk you through how you protect yourself in each one of those levels. I know someone jumped into the chat and asked about deep fakes and cyber resilience. Deep fakes are something we're seeing more and more often. We're seeing it right now against large scale enterprise businesses. But what's going to happen next is those attacks will trickle down to small and medium-sized businesses. So having a process in place. When something looks fishy, Michael, and smells fishy, what is it?
Probably a fish.
It's probably fishy. So,
Yeah.
deep fakes are something we're not seeing really much on the mainstream level yet. We've seen attacks happen on larger scale enterprises, but it will eventually trickle down because technology is getting cheaper and cheaper. And we're going to start seeing those attacks more and more often, which is really scary to think about. But, using a framework like NIST is something that Michael and his team can talk to you about because the NIST cybersecurity framework outlines the steps every business needs to take, to make sure they can get through an attack if it happens.
Yeah, and it's a lifestyle too. So NIST cybersecurity framework is a lifestyle. It is about continuously checking, managing, auditing, making sure your plans are in place, um, and make sure your tools are in place. Make sure that you have your plans in place with the business, because you have to be able to do all of those things. We are getting close on time, and I do want to spend some time doing Q&A, and I've got a couple more polls. So let's see here on slide 15. Let's do another poll.
And while you're putting up that poll, I'll just answer one of the questions, which was about should companies ever pay ransomware? I've actually been in the instance where some cyber insurance companies will actually say, cyber liability insurance will say pay the ransom because you will not be getting anything back anytime soon. I go by the 90s movie, which is I don't negotiate with terrorists, like Samuel L. Jackson would say. But at the end of the day, I mean, Michael, what's your take on that? What's your call? Because American government says you don't pay the ransom, but if that's the difference between you going in and out of business, you have to make that call occasionally, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, if you have to make that business decision, it is a business decision. It's not illegal to pay the ransom. It's just not great. It's not great for the rest of the world because those guys are bad guys. They're business guys. They're selling this product and they have sales departments, they have PTO policies. They're over in, the other side of the earth trying to figure out how to make money doing this. And if no one paid, they'd stop doing it. But man, it's a business decision and you have to do it if you have to do it. And yeah, I've never been in a situation where a client had to pay. So I've never had to negotiate before, but that's a testament to our, really forward thinking security posture that we don't leave up for discussion. We expect our clients to trust us to do the right thing to keep them safe. And it's been a good way to have relationships. So good poll. Looks like people are, all around, pretty spread pretty evenly.
And just to give some context to that last point you made, typically the people who end up paying the ransom, and I don't know if this is something that we have numbers for because we're never going to be able to calculate those numbers. What I hear though is people who end up often paying the ransom are people that don't have a cybersecurity plan. Okay. So I know recently I had a friend whose CrossFit gym was attacked in Australia. They had no cybersecurity plan. They went to their insurance company and they said, yeah, you're hooped. Is that a nice way to say it? I could use some very more graphic words, but they were definitely in trouble and they ended up paying the ransom because they had no chance of getting their information or data back. The insurance company said, you're in trouble. So it's your call. And they end up doing it. I don't know a lot of companies that work with MSPs like you, Michael, who end up paying the ransom. But that's just my 2 cents on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So I mean, I guess just to end it here, because I know we're have to be cognizant of time. Next steps for everyone who's listening. I mean, I'm obviously, thinking they reach out to you and you guys have a chat, have a call. Do you guys do most of those introductory calls in person, or
Yes.
done on the phone? Like, what's the next steps for everyone listening?
Yeah, definitely. Give us a call. Hit us up on email. We'll reach out. I'd love to talk more about some of these questions we've got. It's never, it's never too late until it's too late. So don't wait until something bad happens. The best time to get your uh, cybersecurity resilience plan in order was yesterday. So today is the next is as good as you can do. Um, I do have one more thing. I wanted to do the same quiz on now. How ready are you? So after you've heard kind of some of our thoughts, we had the 1 to 10 scale. If you guys would vote again, see if anybody changed their opinions.
And I just to reiterate before we go, everyone who's listening is here because they have an interest. Maybe they got told by a friend. Maybe they know you personally, Michael, or one of the members of your team. But this is a great first step. I know a lot of you already told me that you have never sat in on a cyber security webinar before. That's great. This should be something you're doing often, whether that's through Michael's team, whether that's on LinkedIn. There's a lot of information out there, but information is great, but actually taking those next steps. I was recently at an event in Orlando, 3 weeks ago, and I talked to a bunch of MSP professionals, so managed service providers or IT leaders, and so many of them had never done a dark web scan on their business. And I don't know if everyone here has ever done a dark web scan on their business, but the first time I did it was one of the most terrifying things because I looked back and I saw my email and my password that I've definitely password recycled in the past, that was on the dark web. So that is one thing that I always talk about. Doing that dark web scan is the first step because if your credentials are on the dark web, it really is just going to be a matter of time before a cyber criminal gets their hands on it and then, decides to make the next moves.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, you see the next poll is we will be doing this webinar series and podcast monthly. So please vote for what you think the name of the series should be. And I have checked. There shouldn't be any trademark violations. These are all available for, for utilization.
And Michael, I've got to
Okay.
hop to another webinar, which is all about compliance. So I've got about 2 minutes. So I think, in the words of Tom Cruise, show me the money. Let's do this.
All right. So Janelle has been keeping track of the most um, participators. I think we've got it. It's a far and away number one here with Kip and Tech Comito. And so definitely you've got a gift card. So please make sure we've got your email. Um, and then who is in second place?
Coming in second place would be Michael Owens.
Okay, awesome. And third place.
Third place is Chris Glenn.
All right. So to each of you guys, if you would, please make sure we've got your email address. We will get you a gift card, Amazon gift card. So, $100. Way to go.
That's about 19,000 Canadian if I do my exchange on that one. Well done.
It's
Well
true.
done.
It's true. It's true.
Well, Michael,
All right,
thanks so much
everyone.
for having me on here. I really enjoyed it. I just threw Michael's info in the chat and my info on LinkedIn. Obviously, if you have any questions for me, feel free to reach out. Michael is your expert here and his team at Amshot. But I can't wait to do the next one. I'm looking forward to it. We got our first one under our belt, and now the second one will be even better.
Yes, we're learning lessons. Thanks again, Miles. Thank you, Janelle, for helping. Thanks, everybody, for attending.
Thanks,
Make it a
guys.
great rest of your week.